I'm here with Ins Choi, the creator and one of the stars of Kim's Convenience, the smash hit now playing at the Soul Pepper Theatre in the Distillery District. Thanks for talking to us.
Oh, you're very welcome.
So, tell me a little bit about Kim's Convenience, both the story or the narrative, but also the history of the show.
Well, the story is about a Korean family and their convenience store. Well, the play is about a Korean family and their convenience store. It takes place over the course of one day, when the father gets an offer to sell the store. So then it puts him in a situation where he starts thinking about what he wants to do with the store. It's set in Regent Park, where there's been a lot of revitalization projects, a lot of condos, and so it's an interesting time. And what happens during the course of the play is there's an estranged son based on the prodigal son story, and the son returns home. So that's pretty much the general plot arc of the play.
I mean, the story behind the play itself is almost as interesting. Tell me about the origins and its kind of meteoric rise.
It started. I went to York University to study acting, and at York I learned a lot, and it was great. But coming out of York, there was not a lot of opportunities for actors of color, especially like Asian male actors, to get work.
Yeah. Or imagine what opportunities there were stereotypes.
Yeah. I mean, in TV and film, it was all the kind of the side, actor roles or principal roles that was like the convenience store owner or the whatevers, but there was a big lack of Asian Canadian plays, or Canadian plays, or contemporary plays that were written by Asians, or that had a central figure that was an Asian male. There was Jean Yoon, who plays the mom in this production. She was a writer. She wrote a few things. MJ Kang as a playwright. She had some stuff done at Tarragon and Theatre Passe Muraille. And there was like Marty Chan's Mom, Dad, I'm Living with a White Girl, or something like that. Those were, and then a few other things, but there really wasn't much else. So what happened, it's serendipitous that when I graduated, there was a bunch of other Asian actor, writer, theater practitioners who graduated from other schools, and we kind of met and kind of started Fujian Asian Canadian Theater Company. And that's where there was a hub of a bunch of us, led by Nina Lee Aquino, who's the present artistic director of Cahoots. And she started a playwriting unit. Yes, there are no rules. So what are we going to do? Just kind of complain, bitch about it. No one's hiring us. Okay, what are we going to do? Complain, bitch? No, let's write. Let's create stories from our experiences, and if they're any good, then maybe it'll get done. So the first big project I think that they did was Banana Boys, and I was cast in Banana Boys, and that's where I met Leon Orius, the playwright who wrote Banana Boys. And me and Leon, we're all great friends. We hung out a lot. And in one conversation, so it's a long story, but in one conversation, he asked me, he goes, oh, no, I asked him, I go, what are you working on? What's your next play? And he started talking about this and that. And he goes, what are you working on? And I didn't really have an idea, but I didn't want to look dumb or anything. So I had to say something. So I said, yeah, I'm working on this convenience store story. And sometimes my imagination goes wild. And he's like, oh, that sounds interesting. Yeah, it's a Korean family. He's like, whoa, where are you thinking of doing it? I'm like, in a real convenience store. Like a site-specific. I'd somehow find a convenience store that was going out of business or whatever, and kind of rent a week and kind of set it in the real store. So that was the very first inkling of Kim's Convenience. Following that, I was invited to be part of one of the playwright units that Nina was leading, and I had Kim's Convenience in mind. that's the project I was going to work with. So I wrote a few scenes, and off the top, it was going to be like funny. It was going to be a sketch comedy. That's what I was thinking. Nothing deep, nothing emotional, nothing huge, but just funny. I wanted people to laugh,
and they do.
Yeah, and they do with this.
But it obviously turned into something more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I just wrote a few scenes there, and then year after year, I applied for a grant here, a grant there, which was really encouraging because it was my peers saying, this is worthy to pursue. Here's some money and pursue it. It's like, oh, okay. And then I got some other workshop opportunities from Diaspora Dialogues. And then also, again, from Fujian, they did another workshop. And the workshops for me were vital. To be able to have real professional actors read my play so that I can sit back and listen to figure out, oh, that doesn't work, that timing's wrong, or whatever. And then even I go to this church called Grace Toronto Church in Toronto, and the pastor asked me, he's a great guy, Pastor Dan, he goes, Ins, how can we help you as a church? How can we help you as an actor, as a creative person? Is there anything we can do? And he chose the right day, because I said, yes, there is something you could do. I need to hear my play. I need another workshop. He goes, how much would that take? And I did the research, a few $1,000s, and so then in a month or so, they raised money so that I could pay my actors, professional actors, like Paul was there, and Paul, yeah. Anyway, so
Who
paid
plays
them.
Appa,
plays Appa.
the central patriarch of the story and the owner of the convenience store, Mr. Kim.
And then we did a workshop at the church for like a week, and that was the last workshop we did before I submitted to the Fringe.
Which was the big reveal. That was the real turning point for this piece.
Yeah.
You pretty much, you won the new playwriting contest. You had I think an entirely sold out run. You got picked up for Best of Fringe. And this strikes me as the really interesting point. Now you're at Soul Pepper, which is kind of a return to home for you, or part of the original, part of the
Academy.
The Academy,
Yeah.
thank you. But it's I think quite notable because Soul Pepper tends to focus on more established works and rarely anything written beyond like 1970 whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
How does it feel to be in kind of such a respected theater with such a different kind of piece?
It feels incredible. I just, the word that keeps creeping up is honored. I just feel so honored to be here, to have Soul Pepper behind this. Like, their staff upstairs, they're amazing. Like, from marketing to graphics to publicity to the finances. Such a great team to have that support this play. It's just amazing. And as well, the flip side of that is, I was walking down the hallway like in December when we were rehearsing, and there was Stuart Hughes. He's one of the founding members of Soul Pepper, and we were in a play together. We had a scene, The Time of Your Life, and he was awesome. So we're in the hallway, and I'm like, and he's like, Ins. I'm like, hey, Stu. Give him a big hug, and he's like, man, we are so lucky to have you guys here. And I was like, what? Like, I'm the lucky one. He's like, no, we are so lucky to have your play. And he meant it, and I don't know. Yeah, I was left speechless.
Returning to the idea of the theme of the play and some of the ideas involved, you really touch on, I want to say touch intentionally because you don't really hit anyone over the head with a hammer on any major social messages, and it is more entertaining than it is preachy by a long shot. But you certainly do touch on a lot of ideas of the role of the immigrant in Canadian society, the limitations of kind of that first generation, the pressures that come with that kind of a family dynamic. What do you feel is still worth talking about? What are still the issues that immigrant families face that are barriers to that kind of, I don't want to say use a parallel here, but the Canadian dream in quotes?
Oh, I don't know. That's a heady question. What are what are things still left to talk
Or
about?
at least, or in the context of the play, what are you trying to make any subtle points about the state of affairs? Are there any things that you would ideally like to see changed?
See change. Wow, that's a big question. Cigarette prices. You know what? Actually, it's there's two things. There's two very relevant. What is it called? Relevant. What's that word? It's very topical.
Yeah.
The 911 call.
Mm-hmm.
in the newspaper in Metro, there's this whole thing about like last year there was like $100,000 that the city used up because of false 911 calls. That's not my whatever, but it's in the play.
Yeah.
He uses 911 incorrectly. So I'd like to see people not use 911 incorrectly from now on. But more seriously, there's this whole situation with cigarette taxes
Mm-hmm.
and cigarette companies and wholesale, like Walmart actually,
Mm-hmm.
where the KBA, and this is just me briefly kind of doing research and kind
Mm-hmm.
of going, okay, what are the issues right now? So, but these big cigarette companies and the government's supporting that because they're selling bulk to Walmart or kind of big conglomerates at a lower rate
Mm-hmm.
than to the retailers. Right? So there's this whole petition that the Ontario Korean Businessmen Association, they're trying to push, trying to get the government involved with a fair weight,
Mm-hmm.
a level field. I mean, those are two issues. I don't really.
Like I said, it's definitely not a preachy
Yeah.
play, but there are very some subtle
What is it?
subtle
What
implications
is
in
it?
there. One of the things that really struck home with me was the story of the LA riots,
Right.
and a Korean convenience store owner down there who, and I have to ask you, was that a real story or was that fabricated for the show?
No, that's my uncle's story.
That's your uncle's story.
That's my uncle's
That's
story.
amazing.
He has a
Do you
store.
want to retell it very briefly?
Sure. He has a store in South Central LA
Yeah.
during the riots. He was actually here. He owned a fish and chip stand in Toronto, in Scarborough, like in the early 80s. And then this is my father's younger brother.
Mm-hmm.
And they went to LA. I think they went first to Chicago and then LA. And he set up shop in South Central LA. Big black community there. And he had a great relationship with his clientele, with his customers. He loaned them money. He got ripped off, but he figured that's okay. Like
Mm-hmm.
being ripped off a little bit, everyone gets ripped off. But he trusted them, and that was the big thing. He trusted his customers. And then when the riots broke out, every other Korean, well, they call it liquor stores down there, but every other liquor store was on fire, looting, but his was kept safe, protected by his customers, whom he had this great relationship with.
And they literally
They
created
stood-
like a human chain in front
Yeah,
of...
they stood in. Well, I don't know if they helped. That was
okay,
just
yeah.
some license, but they stood in front of the store
Yeah.
and protected it, like with their bodies, and a bunch of them. They're like, no, not this store, not this store. We know this guy. This guy's a good guy. Go, go put that store on fire. Yeah.
And when you were talking about Walmart, that's what really kind of came. That's what popped in my head is the story of the fact that one of the aspects of the plays is the story of the family behind any business.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people will walk in and out of a convenience store and just think of it as another generic convenience store, but
Yeah.
you really peel back the layers and say that there's always a human element.
Yeah. Connecting this with the maybe two questions before, if there's anything I want people to take away from this play, it's definitely that they get to understand a Korean family. I've had a few people come up to me, very close friends, who say and everyone has their convenience store.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you live downtown, or even if you drive, you have that place you go to
Yeah.
get the Coke at 10 p.m. or whatever. your smokes when
Yeah.
you need it. And it's usually, it's usually a Korean owned. But I had a few friends tell me that it's after I saw your play, I can never see that convenience store owner, my convenience store owner, they always say, my corner store guy, my guy, I can never see him the same again. I respect him more. I understand him more. And, for a playwright or for any kind of artist, to have that effect is just, it's so rewarding. So that's what I'd like for people to get. If anything, to see Koreans, to kind of see the convenience store owner in a new light.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you very much.